and those are our two benefic planets. So it's like good luck planets and money and relationship and love and all of that, like wrapped up in a little bow with like Valentine's Day. Aloha everybody, and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is your Astro chat for this upcoming week. I give you every Monday evening my time in Hawaii, what is going to be happening with our energy for the upcoming week. So this week is essentially all about Mercury. There's so much that's happening with Mercury making all of these aspects that are going to affect us. Mercury is in retrograde right now, or it's retrograde right now. And so it's going to be a really interesting time, especially as we get towards the latter part of the week where Mercury is going to be making these really, really fun conjunctions with Venus and with Jupiter. And those are our two benefic planets. So it's like good luck planets and money and relationship and love and all of that, like wrapped up in a little bow with like Valentine's Day, which I always thought was really weird that Valentine's Day was smack dab in the middle of Aquarius season, because no one really associates with Aquarians with like necessarily like a Valentine kind of thing. That seems much more Piscean, but we're going to feel it this particular Valentine's Day. So that should be fun. So let us start off though, essentially with, what was happening today, and wondering and checking in for you guys today. I know it was really interesting for me whenever there's a Capricorn moon. So there's a Capricorn moon yesterday and today and just a little bit of tomorrow, depending upon where you are in the world. And then it changes into the Aquarian moon, and we're going to see that actually be a new moon that happens on Thursday, which I'm going to do an entire different video on that, because that just deserves its own video, because it's like a Aquarian stellium, which is like a ton of planets in the sign of Aquarius, new moon, and then we have a Venus Jupiter conjunction. So that is like a really auspicious, beautiful day to kind of like just do some wonderful magic. So I'm going to talk about that in detail in another video, which will come out on Wednesday. However, so today was interesting because it was really this feeling of, you know, being able to focus and sit down and get work done and get things done. And so if you felt that way, that was because we had a Capricorn moon trining Mars and Taurus. So we have like the moon and Mars both in earth signs, and they're both like wanting to get things done, with Capricorn being ruled by Saturn, which is really about like, you know, the nuts and bolts and business and getting things done and how to kind of sort of organize, and like not the sexy part of business, but the part of business that really needs to get done and organized and planned. And then Mars gives you that energy to be able to do that. It's the energy that you need to create that stability. So so that energy was interesting, and I really enjoyed that because I was able to get a ton of stuff done. So I hope you guys were as well. But we're moving now into Mercury. So Mercury, just a little recap on Mercury. We talk about Mercury a lot on this channel, just because, you know, 3 times a year Mercury goes retrograde, and then we're all feeling it in our various different ways. This year, as I mentioned in last week's video, all of the times that it will be retrograde will be in air signs. So Mercury already has that air kind of quality to it as a planet. Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, actually, and also of Gemini. So anybody that's a Virgo, anybody that's a Gemini is definitely going to be feeling this, and we're all going to be feeling this energy anyway, in wherever Aquarius is in our chart, and also wherever Taurus is in our chart. And if you have questions about the retrograde and where it is and all that stuff, I do have up on my Instagram and on my Facebook an infographic that tells you from your rising sign exactly what house this is hitting you, so you'll know like what area in your life you're going to really see a lot of this energy. So I speak kind of in a very broad way, but if you want to kind of target it in and see, you can look at that. And if you want more information, you can definitely book an astrology reading at thewildwahine.as.me. Little plug in there. But anyway, so the sun is conjunct Mercury. that we felt today, this energy we're going to be feeling way until like the 12th and the 13th. And so what does that mean? Sun, Mercury, that is time where we're going to be more visible due to our words and what we say and how we think. So again, Mercury, the mercurial planet, it rules the mind and how we think. It's commerce, how we sell things, how we buy things. It's about like learning, not necessarily higher long-term learning, but like how we learn on the go or how we read something and then apply it to our lives. It's all about like kind of information. and the passing forth of information, the giving back of information. Mercury a lot of times is associated with the internet or with business, commerce, and all of the ways that you kind of make money and all of the things that you do to make money, and just the exchange of things. And essentially that's all money is, right? We giving money to get something back. So it's about exchanging information, exchanging money, exchanging things. That kind of tends to be the place where Mercury is. So with the sun conjunct Mercury, we see this visibility from what we're saying or actually what we're selling or what we're giving. So much of this week is going to be so good, I think, for people who are business owners or people who run businesses or they support the business, especially when it comes to commerce and like advertisement and all that kind of stuff. We'll get into that later, but I just see like really good things because whenever you have Mercury making these like really beautiful aspects, especially with Venus and with Jupiter, you know, that's going to be like a really good time for you to get your product out there or get your thing out there that you want to get out there, or it can be like your art or whatever. But going back to the sun, sun Mercury. So you have this increased visibility, right? This increased visibility for your words or for what you say. Motivational speakers. It really reminded me a lot of, let me see, I'm looking for her name, Amanda Gorman. She's the Youth Poet Laureate. She was the one who did the inaugural poem, and she apparently yesterday, and I don't really watch sports a lot, but I do know that for the Super Bowl, she did a poem for the Super Bowl. I know I didn't see it and I didn't read it, so I don't know a lot about it, but I do know her poetry is a lot about kind of coming together, at least these two poems coming together and honoring. I think a lot of it had to do with honoring all of the people that have been working, you know, all of the doctors and the lawyers and everyone on the front line and things like that, and, you know, coming together. And it's so interesting because so many people were confused as to like, why is there a poet at the Super Bowl? Like, what is that about? And I was talking to my mom and she's like, yeah, that's just like really strange because like a poet, like how does that go together? And I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know, that is so like Jupiter Saturn. You know, Jupiter Saturn is in Aquarius right now. Aquarius is futuristic. Jupiter being this youthful person. She's a youthful poet. And with, you know, Jupiter is also known as the guru. It has to do with words and the higher mind and like spirituality and connecting yourself to things that are greater, which is a lot of times what poetry does. So we have this youthful figure that is speaking these words about these like kind of broad ideas about, you know, coming together and being like collective and looking at our history and where we're going into the future. All of that stuff is very Jupiterian. And then you have Saturn, which is kind of like the game, you know, the football game, the Super Bowl. And a lot of people might think that that's kind of sort of Mars energy, in which it is because Mars does rule athletes. But in the sense of, at least in the United States of America, the Super Bowl is a structure. It is a thing. It happens every year. Everybody gets excited. They come together. They have parties. You know, it's a whole like evening of events. Some people go see it. If you're not going to see it, you know, you're like having a big party at your house. You're going somewhere to go see it, and there's potluck. And so it is very traditional in that sense of it being a Saturnine thing. So bringing things that are like not part of the tradition into it, people can get like grumpy about or weird about or strange with. So it's interesting just to see those, you know, again, we kind of come back to those two energies that are going to be really heavy for us in 2021, also going into 2022 with that kind of forward, different way, you know, especially in Aquarius. It's like, yeah, like what are we going to do? We want to do something different for the Super Bowl. And they're like, let's have a poet, you know. That's such a interesting, like, that's so Aquarian. Like, I can't express to you how incredibly Aquarian that is. Now, I don't really know a lot about her birth chart because we don't have time for her, but I do know she's a Pisces. I'd be really interested in looking in her birth chart. But, you know, it's just, I thought, just a really good example of that. So we have like being seen for your words, being recognized for your words, speaking up and feeling like you have the power to be on your words and speak and say what you have to say and sell what you want to sell and really kind of sort of put yourself out there and put your wares, so to speak, out there. The shadow side of that is nervousness. You know, whenever anything is mercurial, it always has to do with the mind and, you know, thinking and overthinking and kind of sort of that nervous energy, that kind of sometimes manic energy that can happen. You can definitely have like people who are, you know, saying too much or speaking too much, or maybe they have the spotlight on them, but the things that they're saying is really kind of discombobulated. A lot of times it can be the rebirth or death of mercurial figures. So people who, you know, have say a lot or have given speeches, or people who are known for their words. We can see like a rebirth in them. Maybe, you know, a writer, somebody decides to come out with a completely different genre. It could be the fact that somebody passes away. There's all these different kinds of things that happen with this particular energy. So those are some things to think about. Moving to Mercury squaring Mars. Now that is happening from the 8th all the way until the 11th and the 12th, depending upon where you are in the world and you're viewing this. It perfects on the 10th. So Mercury square Mars. So the interesting thing about like kind of the story of Mercury, which is what I feel like I'm telling tonight, the interesting thing about this is we're going to come to a bump. This is our kind of bump with Mercury squaring Mars. And then we're going to come out of that bump and it's going to be kind of like nice and soft. And then kind of like later on in the next week or so, we might hit another little bump when Saturn and Uranus are square each other. So we're definitely going to feel like another like push pull. But again, this year is very different than last year. This year has a lot of ups and downs, unlike the kind of sort of depressive kind of like we're just barely holding it together of 2020. So we're going through a little down and then we're going to go back up on the roller coaster kind of at the end of the week. So with this Mercury square Mars, there's lots of different ways that we can use this energy, but what it's going to feel like and what it can feel like is just frustration. The mind is working and it's running and it's having all these things like come at it, and it's irritation, like in the sense of, Mars a lot of times can be in its more shadow sides, irritated or frustrated and wanting to move and wanting to do things and wanting to do things fast. And Mercury loves to do things fast. That is like the thing, Mercury is based off of the god Hermes, who used to go between the worlds. He would go to the heavens and then the earth and the underworld, and essentially like the only god that was able to kind of sort of go through all of the worlds without having to pay a passage. Like that was his job. So there's this kind of ability to be able to mentally have all three aspects on your mind. Like, what is the best case scenario? What should I do? Oh my God, what might happen? Like, all of, lots of thinking and lots of things going on with the mind. So that can be kind of challenging. It can be like aggressive. So we'll start off with the kind of shadowy parts. It can be very aggressive thinking. It can be expressing yourself in a very aggressive way. It can be anger that's kind of, passive aggressive in terms of like not saying much or withholding your words, or it can be actively aggressive, which is saying like aggressive words and things that are kind of not very nice. A lot of times it can signify mental warfare. Mars is, so to speak, the god of warfare. So like, manipulating people with your words, saying things that can be like aggressive and separate. Mars is all about like separation. Venus, the opposite, is about bringing things together. So it's separating things with the words, separating people, hurting people, putting a wedge between you and someone else with the things that you're saying. So you just want to really be careful during this time whenever there's like, conversations about the hot topics, which would be like politics and like religion and any of the other top things. Not to say that you should quell yourself and not speak, but just know that like if during this kind of period of time, if you're speaking, that you're not necessarily going to get people to back down. You're going to get challenged, and you're going to want to challenge. And where's that going to go? Because Mars isn't really good about like not letting things completely escalate till it just like blows up all over the place. And Mercury's just like, keep it going. So you have that kind of energy of, fast moving. Just be careful, of course, because Mercury is retrograde. So this is the time period too to really be careful with your driving and making sure you're looking both ways and signaling. And just, Mercury is a vessel a lot of times in transportation. So like cars and, airplanes and things like that. So you just want to be careful as you're, negotiating travel and you're going from to and fro, that you're, staying safe and that it's, you're not taking unnecessary risks at this time. So the positive part, or the more light side, so to speak, of this particular aspect of Mercury squaring Mars is it's a really good time to say exactly what you want, and to know that like you don't have to have any shame about what you say. It's very like Queen of Swords and tarot energy. Like, I'm going to say something and this is a boundary and you're going to keep that, and my word is bond. And essentially it can be the energy of, like they say, the pen is mightier than the sword. So that is kind of, like what I say, what I write down, how I communicate, that is going to be what it is. So it's really putting power behind your words. Hey Nibbles, thanks for joining. So it's all about like putting power behind your words and behind what you're saying, and being really direct with how you say things, being direct in your thinking, and kind of like there's a tendency to be a bit scatterbrained with all this, hi, a kind soul, thanks for joining. There is a tendency to be a bit scatterbrained when you're dealing with anything that has to do with Mercury, especially especially when it's retrograde. So one of the ways that we can use the energy of this square with Mars, because you'll have a lot of energy and you'll want to do something with the energy, is to be active with the energy. So building things, doing things, thinking concrete, writing your ideas down. If you feel like they're overflowing, if you have to get into a confrontation with someone or have a confrontational argument, because we can't always control when we do that. We can like look at astrologically what's going on, but sometimes people were like, we need to talk about this right now, and you can't just be like, well, actually Mercury is squaring Mars, so I don't want to have this conversation. I mean, people are going to think you're crazy. So sometimes you have to have a conversation and a time where the planets are doing weird things, and it's not like the best time to have it. So a really good thing to do would be to write down what you want to say so that it's like really clear. Yeah, exactly. Write down what you want to say so it's clear. So, I mean, and it's not like you're like a teacher going into the argument, but at least like, these are the points that I want to get across, and I want to be really clear about what I say. I don't want to kind of let my emotions go like crazy with this. So let me, these are my 3 points. These are my 4 points. Keep it tight, keep it succinct, so that you're not going like on and on and on and letting that kind of Mars kind of rage come out. So again, we're hitting this bump. We're hitting a bump before we actually go into a much more softer, beautiful, like opening and welcoming time, which is happening towards the end of the week. So it makes me think sometimes that this bump that's going to happen, and like I said, it perfects for you guys who joined later, it perfects around the 10th. It's going to happen, but through that, pushing through that and kind of being honest about what's going on and speaking your truth and listening to the other person and not like flying off the handle will enable you to get to the sweet spot of the latter part of the week. So sometimes when we see this, where we see like a little bit of tension and then we have a release, it's like you needed that tension. So it doesn't mean to like hide from the confrontation. It just means to make sure that you're using your energy in the proper way and you've really thought through, and you're not letting your mind kind of sort of get the best of you, because that's the thing with Mercurial. The mind is running, it's racing, it's thinking about all different possibilities. It has thought of all possibilities. It has, has every single worst case scenario down. And a lot of times you're just sitting there freaking yourself out, really, seriously. And so it's time to calm down, and kind of like compartmentalize and then move forward from there. Okay, so then we go into the 11th, which I said I'm not going to talk too much about because I'm doing a different video on that, but that would be like our new moon. That's going to be in Aquarius. It's a big old Aquarius stellium, which means tons of planets in Aquarius, which is going to be great, and a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, which is like the 2 benefic planets coming together, giving a big hug and kiss. That's going to feel amazing, and it's going to be a great time for us to kind of sort of birth something really beautiful. But like I said, that'll be in another video because I really want to get back to Mercury then taking each one of those benefic planets and kind of sort of having a conversation with each of them. So Mercury conjuncts Venus it goes exact on the 12th, but it's from the 11th all the way to the 14th. So what is that? Okay, so that is all about, if we're thinking that it being the opposite of what was happening with the square with Mars being the thing that separates and cuts and like, pushes things apart, sometimes so that you can even see it. Think more about, hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining. The Aquarian is here. So we're thinking a little bit more about Mercury conjunct Venus, as Venus is one that brings things together. So all of the thoughts, all of the ideas, all of the things that you want to put out there in the world, all of the exchange, because Mercury is all about that exchange of energy, the exchange of product, and coming together and creating something beautiful. And I'm so excited about this. Really excited about this, probably because I have natal Mercury conjunct Venus, so I'm a little bit biased. But so creating beautiful works of art, I think, is going to be amazing. So this is a great time, like I said, for business, for people that are artists, for people who are writers. I think this is like, if you wanted to set aside some time and like write or work on your creative, project, whatever that is, even if it's something like visually beautiful, but something that's like interesting and weird. Like if you have many projects to work on, like if you have like all these things, I would wouldn't say pick the weirdest one, because remember, all these planets are in Aquarius, and Aquarius is like the freak. It's like the weird one, you know, the one that's like, I'm going to put this against this and then create something beautiful. So lean into that project that you were like, oh, nobody wants this, or no one's going to like these colors together, or this is a weird story because I don't know, it fits in between two genres. That's the one that you want to pick. You want to pick the one that's kind of weird and kind of like different and interesting, because that's what's going to be the one that you have like the most energy for, and it's going to, you know, create something beautiful with that. So a couple of other things. I think we're going to start to see a little bit more diplomacy. We might even see that, you know, in the political spectrum, and I'm kind of specifically talking about the United States because that's where I am. But, you know, this talk that we've been having of like coming together and why can't we come together and do things, we might see a little bit more of that. I'm not saying we're going to see it the whole time, because we have like a lot of open and close and up and down, but for maybe this week there might be some things where people are like, you know, in terms of diplomacy, because, you know, Venus is also the ruler of Libra, which is about justice and social justice. So we might see people kind of coming together saying, yeah, let's fix this problem. This is a problem, you know, or at least brainstorming about how they're going to fix or how they want to fix the problem. So we might see a little bit more diplomacy. Let's see, a good time for us to, we might be receiving things. You know, Venus is like this benefic planet of like, you know, receiving things or making a wish and having those things happen. So you might, you know, get something from someone in the mail. You might give something to someone. So it's all about like bringing people together, gift giving. You might like come upon some money, or you sold something for more than you thought that it was. So anybody that has like anything online, especially if you're doing anything with like commerce, because Mercury is all about like commerce and online sales. So anybody that has any kind of visibility like that, or the ability to sell things, really good time for you to, you know, create a special, create ads, put yourself out there and put your products out there, because it's going to draw people in, because that is the thing with Venusian energy, is all about kind of like pulling energy in, as opposed to like, you know, I'm here. It's like I'm beautifying this and creating this beautiful space that is going to, what do you think about Venus conjunct Jupiter? Oh no, I haven't. I'm going to do a totally separate video on that one. That's going to be like part of my new moon. I haven't. Oh, hey, Zara, thanks for joining. So I haven't discussed that. I am going to discuss it, but I wanted to keep this video kind of tight. But I will be talking about that. But I'm excited. I'm super excited for Venus conjuncting Jupiter. That's going to be amazing and auspicious. And that is happening on the 11th. And like I said, I'm doing a video on that just because that's exact on the new moon in Aquarius. So I think that's going to be like really amazing, because it's not very often that our benefics are conjunct like that. So I think it's going to be really beautiful, especially for those of us who have something that we want to do. Like a lot of people have given birth to amazing things and ideas and business ideas and like all of that kind of stuff. So I'm excited for that time. So really great time for dating or getting to know somebody, or, you know, like talking to somebody and flirting with somebody and kind of letting your personality come out and all that kind of sort of fun stuff. I don't know why I'm not able to comment. Well, you just commented, a kind, so I just saw it. So you can comment. I can totally see you right here commenting. So say something else if you want to say something. So so essentially, but again, as we always have these, we always have, you know, all of the time, like the shadow aspect of that, or what does the other side of that look like? And so sometimes there can be some superficiality with that. There could be times where, you know, you have a lot of sugarcoating going on. You're saying the right thing, but you maybe don't mean what you're saying, or you're kind of avoiding the elephant in the room by kind of saying things that are nice. Or it could also be like the used cars salesman who's like, oh my gosh, you have this, like, there's this great deal. You have to buy this thing. It's going to be amazing. And then it ends up not being exactly what you think it's going to be. So there's like a quality of that that comes with it sometimes. But for the most part, I really look at this as being like a beautiful time. And I think for people who, especially if you're looking to, you know, reconnect or rededicate with your relationship or get with somebody else, I think it should be lovely, because all that energy is like extending into the Valentine's Day. So if you have somebody special in your life, you know, doing something special for them and really honoring them, and then, you know, receiving something special is something that's going to happen. So the next thing that we're going to talk about for this week is Mercury. Let's see. How will things be after the 21st and Mercury retrograde will end? So I usually do my videos week to week. So we're going to talk about that next week. I think it's still going to be good. I don't see a lot of, I mean, we do have on the, I believe the 17th, there's going to be Saturn squaring Uranus, which is going to be another little bump. Because like I said, if you, and this will all be up on like IG and Facebook and all of that. So we're kind of doing a bump with the first square, then we'll be up again, and then we're going to have another little bump, and then we're going to be up again. So we're kind of feeling that out. I wonder if that energy is going to be kind of moving into that. But at least I know for this week specifically, we have a lot of energy that at least towards the end of the week is going to feel good and be very benefic for a lot of people. Oh, it's on the 16th. 16th, so it also depends on where you are in the world. Because I think for me, it might be the 17th. Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting too. I mean, we've been in it though. I mean, it's been like 1 degree this whole time. So we've been kind of feeling it, but it will go exact on the 16th or 17th. Again, depending upon where you are in the world. But I actually don't have my computer in front of me to see that. So, so Mercury retrograde conjunct Jupiter. So that we're going to be feeling that energy from the 12th to about the 17th, and it goes direct on the 14th. So again, this is our second benefic planet. Jupiter is kind of like, the nickname for Jupiter is the guru. And I love that because it's about like wisdom and, but like in a very different way. Cause I think people a lot of times think of Saturn that way. It's about the wisdom that you have from like a higher learning. It's also associated with like the higher mind. So it's spirituality. It's about expansion and making things bigger. So if we were looking, especially conjunct Mercury, for making like lining our pockets and making more money, this is a really great time. So if you wanted to release that thing, that's what I'm saying, like for business, I think this is going to be really, really great for a lot of you. If you wanted to release something or get something out there or get more followers for your online platform, this is a really good time to do that. If you were thinking about like, taking a class or, really studying something in a deep way, like, some type of course or going back to school or even just dedicating yourself to a new way of expressing yourself spiritually, this is a good time for that. It could be something as simple as, okay, I'm going to do a 30-day self-love practice, as much as it could be completely like dedicating yourself to a completely different religion, or, following a different guru or something like that. Has all to do with those kinds of things. There's a time that we're going to be thinking a lot about travel. Jupiter a lot of times is, has to do with travel. And I know our travel's been a little, like some people are still traveling. Most people are not. Not saying that everybody's going to start traveling, but you might start thinking about that because of how good things are going or perceivedly going, that eventually you might be like planning on making some travel or, starting to, make those ideas for where you want to go for your birthday or for next year or when you're going to get married or whatever, or anything like that. I think a lot of people during this time, I'm just going to put it out there, if you were kind of waiting to get proposed to and things like that, I think that it's going to be a really good time for that. It just looks like that, like I think like engagement, because it's all about like Mercury, and making things also bigger and having things like come together. So what it could look like is someone asking you to be serious with them, for the long term. Somebody's asking you to marry them, extending your family, bringing more kids on potentially, like any of those things. Oh, thank you so much, sweetie. I love you too, Nessa. Oh, thank you. I miss you. I know, like we have to chat. We haven't chatted in forever, and I love your forecast too. So it could be anything like that. Somebody like in the future, adding on and making your family bigger and making any of those kind of things bigger. Let's see. Yes. So yeah. So I think I pretty much covered everything in terms of, I miss you too. I think I covered everything in terms of like making, like of all the kind of sort of lighter sides of this. But as we always do, we talk about kind of the shadowy things that can also happen with this aspect, because that does happen. And so there's some things in terms of like the bigness and the largesse, so to speak, of Jupiter. It could be like over talking someone, over, stepping over people with your communication, AKA mansplaining. Those things happen a lot. It could be a person that's braggadocious, a person that's like saying a lot and maybe they're not able to like back up the things that they're saying. really can have that energy of like, you know, oh, everything is perfect and you have to buy this and you have to do this and you're selling something or you're buying, you know, so one thing to be careful of a little bit, I think, is even though everything feels really good, you want to really pay attention to the details. Mercury is really good about that. Jupiter's all about big picture energy, like what are things going to look like. So if you're getting into business or with somebody, if you're doing something new, remember this is still a retrograde period. So you want to read the fine line, because there is this quality in the shadow of Mercury retrograde conjunct Jupiter that could be very Wolf of Wall Street. If you guys saw that movie with Leo DiCaprio, there's this, you know, like he starts off this business and he's like consulting, and then he ends up like, you know, taking people's money and doing all kinds of like weird consulting things and not really investing it and making all of this money. And then he's like a huge quaaludes, you know, an alcoholic, and like leaves his wife and gets another wife. And it just gets bigger and bigger and crazier and crazier. And he just gets overwhelmed by everything. And that can be the energy, you know, in the shadow side, in the shadow realm of this, where it's just overwhelming. It's way too big. You kind of got a bit corrupt in what you were doing, and you kind of lose yourself and lose who you are and end up kind of losing everything. So that can be a quality too. So you just want to make sure that the mind is really, although all these things are growing and all these things are big, that you're really looking at things and you're looking at the detail and you're reading the fine line before you sign off on contracts or sign off on things. Because again, it's still, even though it's good, making good aspects, we're still in a retrograde period and we're revisiting these things from before. So yeah, so essentially I think that's everything. Thank you guys so much for joining. My name is Kaylani. This is the Wild Wahine, and this is your Astro Chat for this week. If you have any questions, you can also just comment below. Make sure you like and share the video if you can. It will be up on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And I think I also have a link to Twitter. If you have any questions, you can also email me at kaylani@thewildwahine. And if you're interested in booking either an astrology reading or a tarot reading, or doing any kind of consulting about questions about your astrological chart or what you want to do in your life or self-love or any of those things, I am here for you guys. You can find me at www.thewildwahine.as.me. So thank you guys for joining today. And like I said, I will be coming up with our new moon in Aquarius video on Wednesday. I'll release that. But you guys have an amazing week and enjoy this beautiful kind of upward energy, because we deserve it, right? Okay. Aloha, everyone.